When we look for the light, we find it. If we don't look for the light, we'll never find it.
Welcome everybody. This podcast is all about you. Why knowledge matters. Welcome. I'm Yannick, your host, and now joining me, Dr. Gladys McGarey. Dr. Gladys McGarey is a centenarian and is truly such a special guest, and I'm so thrilled to have you on the show because she is one of the founder and pioneers of holistic medicine and what we call today, I guess, functional medicine. A woman that I can't believe that she is here on the show, such a change maker, such an incredible book that you have written called The Well-Lived Life. 100-year-old daughter's 6 secrets to health and happiness at every age. Welcome, Dr. Gladys McGarey, to the show. I'm so pleased and honored.
I'm very honored to have you listening to what I have to say. That's wonderful.
You know, usually we don't ask people their age, and especially when it comes to women as a man. So I avoid this all the time, especially for the woman between 20 and 30 or 40 and so on. So you always make a very genuine guess. But in your case, you are very straightforward, obviously. You are 103 years old, and in November 30th, you are 104 years old. What
Yes.
an incredible life. And so what do you think why you're actually proud of your age, but a lot of young people somehow fear, becoming older? What do you think? What is it?
Well, every day has a new beginning, and every day has work to do. So as long as I have a purpose and I have things that I feel are important, I have a reason to be alive and live another day. I have a friend, a real good friend, and she's old, but she's not quite as old as I am. But she called me the other day and she said, not another day, when she woke up. And I don't feel that way. I feel like, oh, yes, another day. And this is what I have to do today. There's work to be done. And as long as I have work that I feel that is doing something to help others and help myself, I better keep moving. Because as soon as you stop moving, it stops. So we have to keep moving. And so that's my purpose, and working through trying to help other people who it's so easy to get stuck, so easy to get so that you feel like you're not doing anything. But if you keep looking for the light, you find it. It's there. It's always there.
It's so beautiful. And that's precisely, you reveal to the world your 6 secrets, to a happy and healthy life. And I'm really curious. Walk us a little bit through your past when you were a kid. You grew up
I didn't understand that. Repeat that, please.
Just walk us a little bit through your childhood. You had such an interesting childhood. You grew up basically most of the time in India. Your parents are like you now. They were working for the poorest of the poor.
Right.
And how did this somehow influence you of being now this outstanding person and change maker, still up to today and still working?
Well, because as I grew up, I I saw not just my parents doing this work, but the Indian people around me, the people that were working with helping other people understand things or just be aware of things was seemed as a little kid. You know, I had dolls that went to the hospital because I was a doctor and I needed to take care of my dolls. My sister wouldn't let me take care of her dolls because her dolls didn't get sick, but my dolls did. But it was that kind of a awareness from the time I was little that was going to be my job and I had to learn how to do it. And so I stuck around where my parents were doing. I watched what my mother did and what my father did. And I thought, yeah, that's right. That's right. And I kind of just tracked along behind them. And I'm so glad I did.
What do you think was it that you were able to basically mimic your parents? Because it's not necessarily always the case. And you went through your own struggles when you were a kid in India. You know,
Yeah.
you really talk about this. You were crying most of the time when you came home, and you were just looking forward to seeing your caretaker at home really putting your hands around you.
Yes. Well, I was blessed with a home that I could come home to. What a blessing that is for each one of us. The world out there can be real tough and we have to face what we have to face. But if we can come home to a loving home, it allows us to go on with our lives. My mother and father were amazing. My dad was a good disciplinarian, and I can see him looking at me and saying, "Are you a quitter?" I was not. If I was playing and I quit, he'd look at me and say, "Oh, are you a quitter?" "Oh, no, no, I'm not a quitter." That kind of thing. But my mother always found something of humor that she could add to difficult things that had to be dealt with. Like, for instance, my first 2 years in school were horrible because I'm dyslexic to this day. I'm still dyslexic. I at that point the alphabet just jumped around on the page for me. I couldn't I couldn't read, so I repeated first grade. I was in first grade twice, and it was I was the class dummy, and I just really was broken as far as my own self-esteem, except at home. At home, it was a different thing. And then when I got into third grade, I had a teacher who saw something in me that the other teacher hadn't seen. So she appointed me as class governor. And as class governor, I got to take what was in our class and present it to our whole student body. And so that put me in a different position. And and the story goes on from there. But it's a awareness that life has to be lived and lived in a way that can be workable, but also joyful and livable.
You know, you say that your father said to you, well, are you a quitter? And what do you think? Why is it that we struggle so much in these days to keep families together? What do you think are the major variables that inhibits people of staying together? What has changed?
Well, first of all, I think love is the central focus. And love, see, I have these, what I call the 5 L's, that kind of give me a little bit of a platform from which to work. The first 2 L's are life and love. They can't be separated. It's like when I was pregnant, the baby and I were one being. What I ate, the baby ate. What I thought, the baby, we were one being. But so it was one complete unit. But when the baby took its first breath, it became a separate unit. So it was like I was femifesting the first part of the pregnancy with the baby knowing everything that I was. We were one unit. But when as soon as the baby took its first breath, it became a separate unit, and it became manifested. It would now manifest itself as a true being. So the first two L's are really important to work together. Life and love need to work together. If you incorporate love into every aspect of your life that you can imagine, you're going to be really, really doing the thing that makes your whole thing, your heart sing. Now, the third L is laughter. Laughter without love is cruel. It's mean. It breaks families apart. It causes wars. But laughter with love is joy and happiness. The fourth one is labor. Labor without love. Oh, I have to go to work. Too many diapers. Life's too hard. You just drag yourself through one day after another. But labor with love is bliss. It's why you do what you're doing, why I do what I'm doing. It's you work 15 times as hard because you don't have to drag yourself through it like you do if it's without love. But with love, it's bliss. So that's the fourth. And the fifth L is listening. Listening without love is empty sound, clanging gong. But listening with love is understanding. So these 5 L's kind of put a foundation on or under the philosophy of how love permeates every aspect of our life if we choose to have it do so. But it is a choice.
You know, this is so crucial. But on the other hand, is that most of the time we are never taught these critical elements that you just laid out for a happy and healthy life. Why do you think is that we don't focus on this first and then focus on more, materialistic things, let's say?
Well, it's what your purpose is. See, I truly believe that each one of us came into this lifetime, for a special purpose. It's like a huge jigsaw puzzle. Every piece has its own place. There isn't anybody else that can take that place. And if that piece is missing, if you've ever made a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle and you can't come up with the last piece and it's not there, you drive yourself crazy trying to find that last piece. We all belong in the place we belong in because that's our place. And when we find that aspect of our life that allows us to really think, oh, yes, that's what I'm doing. That's the juice. That's what gives me wants me to wake up in the morning, because this needs to be done. It's sort of like if I have a flashlight, and it's a good flashlight, and I'm walking down a dark night path, and there's just the path, the step ahead of me that is all I can see. But as I'm walking down there and I look over to the side, there may be a little flickering light someplace along the line. But if I shine my light on that flickering light, it becomes great. It just booms right up. In other words, if we're looking to help other people, if we're looking for life and what it needs from us, we'll find it. It's there. We just, if we're not looking for it, we're not going to find it. But if we are looking for it, we'll find it. It's there.
How can we enable ourselves and empower ourselves to look for this choose, because you really know your purpose, your choose, and how do you find it, if you do not know it? And talk about what you mean specifically, what you mean by choose, and then how to find your choose. It's so hard for so many people.
Well, it's sort of like, what is it that makes your heart sing? What is it that you really want to do? You can keep looking for the pain and hard things that you've lived through. And, well, let me just tell you what happened in my life that is a good story for this. When I was just turning 70 and I'd been married for 46 years, my husband asked for a divorce. We had done the whole Holistic Medical Association. We'd done all the work we had done together. We'd raised 6 amazing children. All this. And I was in my car and I was broken. I was so broken. I was screaming and yelling in the car, driving down I-10 back to my home in Casa Grande, where I was going to be staying alone with my dog. And, I was just really, really broken. And, and I was letting the world know it. And it was terrible. It felt horrible. I was just doing saying ugly things. It was just really, really bad. But then I pulled over to the side of the I-10 and stopped my car, and I got out. And I stood there thinking about what I was saying. Excuse me. But I had to just stop and look around, and I suddenly thought to myself, am I going to spend the rest of my life like this? I mean, it was horrible. I mean, it was an ugly, ugly place to be. And the words came to me, this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And there was my name, Be Glad. And I thought, oh, okay, I have a choice here. I have a choice to be mean and awful and terrible like I'm being right now, or I can do something about that. So I got back in my car and I went home and I talked to the dog, the only thing that was there, and explained that I was going to change my license plate. And I did. The next day I went to the License Bureau and I changed my license plate to be glad, so that every time I got into my car, I had to see that. I had to remind myself. Not only that, but I realized that everybody behind me in traffic would have to see that. So I lived another 60 years or so here, and the whole time I was driving through Phoenix traffic, people were seeing a license plate that said, Be Glad. In other words, it was taking the actual choice that I had to be stuck in this awful place or change it. And I chose to change it.
It is so important, but I think it was also, to some extent, the anger that you have and what you went through, it was also necessary at some point.
Yeah.
But then, explain a little bit why this actually was at the beginning healthy, and then how you realized that you somehow have to change gears and you made this choice.
Well, This isn't a theology, but I just kind of think it is. When God created whatever God is to each one of us, when God created the universe, it was perfect. Everything was just the way it was supposed to be. Everything was right. And then God created the human being. At that point, God said to us as human beings, He said, now I have created this universe and it's perfect. It's just exactly the way it needs to be. And now I have created you as the only living beings in this earth who have choice and free will. So therefore, I give you dominion over this whole universe. And we, people, human beings, in our arrogance, thought He said, I give you dominance. Now there's a world of difference being given dominance and giving dominion. Dominance says, oh yeah, it's my stuff, you know? Well, that's what we have done with Mother Earth. We human beings who have free choice, the only beings on this planet that have free choice, have been given the dominion, which means taking care of. And we've forgotten that. The beautiful thing that I'm finding right now is that I'm talking to people all around the world. I'm finding that there are human beings on this planet who are reaching back to their true humanity. I think that's why you're doing the kind of work you're doing. I think it's the kind of thing that those of us who have found how we can fulfill our juice are sharing it with others, are finding that they are looking for it too. That the world is really, really wants to feel this reconnection that we have with our inner being and with our soul. I have to tell you the story of my eldest son. He's a retired orthopedic surgeon, and he came through Phoenix, and he was on his way down to Del Rio, Texas, where he was going to start his practice. And he said to me, Mom, I'm real scared. He said, I'm going into the world. I'm going to have people's lives in my hands. He said, I don't know if I can handle that. And I said, well, Carl, if you think you're the one who's doing the healing, you have a right to be scared. But if you take what you have learned as an orthopedic surgeon, which, believe me, if I've got something broken, I don't want somebody who doesn't know what he's doing working and doing the correct. I want a good orthopedic surgeon to do the work. You learned good work, you do the good work with love, and you don't worry about it because you're not the one who has to do the healing. It's the physician within that patient that you contact with love. And as you contact that patient within, that physician within the patient, you got a colleague. And the two of you together do the healing. If you could, and he accepted that, and he's retired now, and he's got, a wonderful 6-acre land up in Washington State and everything, but he did a wonderful job as an orthopedic surgeon, loving his patients as he worked with them, doing the work that needed to be done.
You mentioned how important this is, having something to look up to, having something we can actually hold on to. But
Right.
it seems that a lot of people, they think like then they can make it on their own. Tell me a little bit how important for you it was to have a foundation whereupon you stand on, where you can actually look ahead and have faith in no matter what you're facing, because you are the example. You have basically activated within yourself as well this physician, because you were battling twice, and you talk about this in the book, with cancer, and you overcame it. So please talk about how important actually this is, having faith some sort, whether it's a Christian God or something else, but at least, yeah.
Having faith, is that what you're asking me? What was
Yes, and
that question?
the importance of having faith, having a foundation whereupon you
Oh
can
yeah,
stand on.
yes, yes. It was well, you know, as you watch what life is giving you and what you're dealing with, and you watch yourself make choices, and if you're fortunate enough to have a family that helps support the choices that you make, you know that you're making the right choices because it feels right and it works out right. It doesn't work out badly. But as you begin to understand that you are the one that has a choice in how you deal with these things, then you honor that choice. It's a fact that when you realize that, it's like if I carry a bag of bad memories over my shoulder and I keep looking back at that bag, I'm going to have a stiff neck. I'm going to have to really pull my head back from that, looking over at that. Depends on what you choose, how you're going to choose to look for your life and what you're going to choose each day. Really, we really have a choice each day. And if it's a choice that makes you sing, oh, it's great. It's like the sun comes up. Otherwise, oh, it's hard.
How do you respond to someone who says, well, I wasn't lucky as you were, who had role models in your home? Your parents were role models, perfect
Yes.
role models.
Well, they were, but other people around too. The little Indian kids that I played with kept rubbing my arms trying to get the white off. Okay. That was a really good experience for me. They were working trying to get the white off. Well, then I come to a country and a life that's trying to put, what we're working with, the whole racial stuff. And it just seems so ridiculous when when the kids wanted that white to go so it was brown like they were. We want people to look like us, to be like us, or for us to be like them, or what. We want to fit in. And we look around and look around till we find where we fit. Like my son finding the fact that he had within the patient an actual colleague. Look for when we look for the light, we find it. If we don't look for the light, we'll never find it.
That's so beautiful, because it also comes back to us that on our it's our responsibility to look for
Yes.
it, and it takes work. And that's always the thing, that usually we are generally as a species a little bit lazy, and we always like to blame other people, but it clearly it makes us miserable. And so let's move a little bit on before we go to a life needs to move. Tell me what you do in the morning. What is your morning routine? When do you get up, and what are the things that you do that you never miss in the morning?
Well, I get up and I open my eyes and I look around and the sun's coming up, or I get up at 6 o'clock and I go to bed about 8 o'clock and I sleep a good hour. I look forward to my dreams and I work with my dreams and I eat a decent breakfast and I I'm a normal person that just does the things that need to be done. And then look at what's happening now. I'm talking to you. And where are you?
Canada, Kingston, Canada, yeah.
So, but here you are in my face. And so it's amazing. You wouldn't be here if you weren't looking for something like me, and I wouldn't be here if I wasn't looking for something like you. I mean, we have a community in this world of people, of human beings who are truly seeking for their true humanity. And if those of us who have some secret or some way of expressing it in our own way of doing it, because that's the way we do things, then we can help other people. But if we're not looking for helping them, we won't see it. We won't see the person that's struggling right next to us, and yet sometimes all they need is a smile or a shake, or a hand, or the other day on Mother's Day, I had the privilege of having my great-granddaughter, who is just 3, come up and stand by my chair and look up at me and smile. I mean, life doesn't get any better than that. It's a process of having and what a privilege we as parents have to help our children and grandchildren work with the life as it is in their lives right now. It's this loving connection that it can be easily broken, but it doesn't need to be. And the little people who are coming along have got a lot of wisdom to give us. In fact, I have a great-grandson who's in a church community in Pennsylvania, and his mother told us that they had a Sunday school class where the children had gathered their pennies and nickels and dimes together in a little bowl, and they were going to send it to someplace, I don't know where they needed to dig a well because the people didn't have any water, and they needed to do this. So there are these 3 little kids. They're 5 years old, the little girl and the little boy, and then my grandson, great-grandson. And the little girl says, so they've got their money in the little bowl, and she says, can we pray? And the little boy beside her said, I don't know. I don't know if we can pray. And my grandson says, sure we can pray. God's all around us. Let us pray.
Beautiful.
And so they prayed and they sent their money off for went to be. But it's connecting one after the other in all generations, And I have the privilege now, and it brings tears to my eyes, to be able to talk to people all over the world about these things that are so alive, and we need to reach to each other. We around the world need to reach out to each other and become a community, because we can now. Look at what we're doing. You know, in my wildest imagination, when I was a kid, I could never have ever imagined this because I didn't even know a telephone. So, in all of this time, the technology has grown and grown as we humans have been reaching to each other. I mean, you and I wouldn't be doing this if we hadn't been reaching out to each other. And I think it's just awesome.
And it's especially uh, wonderful that you do this, and you give this honor to people much younger than yourself, because you could easily just say, well, I mean, sometimes I ask myself, what do you think as almost 104 years old, and then you see like people, let's say myself or whatever, and we are just beginning our journey, and you are so with your wisdom, and you see all the flaws we have, like what goes through your head?
Do with the things that are wrong, or what but I don't understand your question.
Just like what, sometimes I feel like, wow, it's almost like you have so much wisdom, and then you talk, let's say, to myself, and that I'm on my journey, and I still have so many flaws, and how do you think about younger people, or people who are just do not have the wisdom that you have?
I don't see them as flaws. I see them as loving learning experiences that from which we can learn and choose either go on or choose to change. Because I think everything in life is a learning experience. It's. I don't think that diseases are something to be gotten rid of. I think they're something that need to be understood in a way that we can, as our own being and the physician that we're working with, can work with so that we understand what this disease is trying to teach us. It's like, it's sometimes it's a simple thing like this. I had this one patient, she was a lovely patient. I think I worked with her probably for 5 or 6 years. And this day she was in my office, and she had the same complaint that we'd been working with all that time and not found a solution for. She had pain in her shoulder, and it bothered her a lot. And so we would talk about all kinds of things and all kinds of possible remedies and so on. And this one day when we were doing this, and we had finished the session, she got up to leave. She turned around and picked up her purse, and it was a heavy satchel that she put on her shoulder. And the two of us looked at each other and said, all this time, we've been looking for the cause of this pain, and I've been creating it every day I put this purse on my shoulder. So it was, for me, that was one of the most interesting experiences that I had of helping someone find what it was that was causing the pain. That simple process of putting that, because that's what she did so routinely that she didn't think of it as something that would cause the pain. And yet, that's what, when she stopped doing that, she didn't have any more pain.
That is beautiful. Now, I just want to go a little bit back quickly to the dreams that you were mentioning and parenting. But first, I really want to talk a little bit about parenting, because now more and more young people, they say, well, I don't want to become a parent anymore because, all these crazy things that are going on. What's your response to that?
I say, well, you're going to miss out on life if you don't want to be a parent. I mean, this is our privilege and our joy to expand what it is that we've learned and what we can share with these wonderful people who are coming into our lives and can help us understand. I mean, I think we need to pay attention to what these little people are saying and reach out to them and let them know that they're really, really important, that they are the ones that are coming up now to take over as we go on, but they're the ones who are going to lead the earth evolving process. And so, as we, in our loving manner, help them to be the people that they want to be, and we try and we live the lives ourselves personally that they would want to be, then we're doing something. And I'm telling you, it's a most amazing job and the most worthwhile job that any of us can have. I have 6 kids who have kids who have kids, and I swear each one of them is just a shining jewel.
That is beautiful. I can't be said, any better. It makes so much sense. But I also want to mentioning something that, for kids, and that's why sometimes I feel so sad when people separate, and you actually went through, although your kids were already a little bit older, but because of the fact that you are come only to life because of this because two people love each other and have this intimate relationship, that if they actually separate for the kid is almost like, well, now I'm not loved anymore, because the only reason why they exist was because of this love relationship of the twos. Can you comment on that and how potentially traumatic but also potentially fruitful it can be for a kid?
Well, it's where you find love. It's what we're all looking for. And so if a relationship breaks up, that's then you have to find how to reconnect. And it's, I think, each one is its own process. No one can tell anybody else how to live their lives. I mean, we can say, well, what I would do, but in reality, we each one I suggest that we look for life's most endearing and uplifting and loving aspects of our lives, and then that's what we share with people. We know we can sit around and complain and be mean and all kinds of. You can be anything you want to be, but if you want to really enjoy life, enjoy it by allowing yourself to love the people around you, love the world around you, love your life. If you love your life and find things that you are really, that make you want to keep on doing it because it makes other people happy, and your life gets enriched because you have enriched somebody else's. And then if you have a family and you have little people coming out, it's like my son John here, who is helping me, okay? He's a retired Presbyterian minister, but when he was 7 years old, he came into the living room and he says, I wish Jesus was here. And I said, well, I do too, but why you? And he says, because I've got questions. And I said, well, maybe I could help. He says, you don't have any answers. And I said, well, try me. So he says, okay, how can God be if he never got started? I mean, this is a 7-year-old saying this to me. I said, oh, well, maybe it's like a circle. It doesn't have a beginning or an end. He says, I knew you didn't have the answer, and he runs off. But here he is doing the work that he was looking for. And then I have a son that is a psychologist. So he was 4 years old. He comes in and he says, I know something. And I said, what's that, Bobby? He says, if I make a friend and he makes a friend and he makes a friend, it's going to go all around the world and come back to me. Of course, he's a psychologist. You know, I mean, when you listen to these children coming up and saying things, and then you support them as they are doing this, then you may not have all the answers that they're looking for, but you know, you're there and you're for them, and they can come to you.
When you talk about dreams, it really reminds me of Carl Jung, the unconscious and the conscious, and how important it is actually listening to your dreams. And you take also your dreams actually seriously. And you, as you just mentioned, you said that you're looking forward to your dreams. Explain this a little bit further. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think, well, dreams have been very helpful for me in my life. If I have a problem or an issue, I put it to a dream. And quite often I get the answer. And in fact, I found my voice when I was 93. For years, you know, I was dyslexic and all that stuff and the dumbbell, so I was pretty well. There was a part of my being that was damaged, and I knew that I just, you know, couldn't do things. So I'd written books, I'd done lectures, I'd done all kinds, but I always kind of would hope to have somebody around that I could have, I could look to and say, is that right? You know, I could just check out what I had said. But then when I was 93, I had a dream. And in this dream, well, actually, I woke up laughing and singing. But the dream that I was remembering was that I saw myself as a 9-year-old Gladys in the jungles of North India, just coming out of a tent, and I was peeking out of the tent to make sure that my younger brother wasn't out there, because if he saw what I was about to do, I'd get tattled on, and then I'd be in trouble, because our family, we were not allowed to do, on Sunday mornings, on the Sabbath morning, we were to sing hymns and bhajans, which were the Indian hymns, or not to sing, you know. But I thought that was a stupid rule, and I'm 9 years old, and I know a lot, so I think I can get away with this, so that my brother isn't there. So I run as fast as I can to the mango tree, and I climb clear up to the top, and I'm sitting up at the top, and I'm singing any old thing I'm scared to sing. But every so often, I look over my shoulder, and Jesus is up in the tree with me. And Jesus is laughing. And I say, I'm 9 years old. I look at him and I say, Jesus loves the little children, right? He says yes, and he's laughing. So I go back to my singing, and then I get to thinking, did he really say yes? So I go back to my shoulder and I look over. He's still laughing. And I said, I'm still a little children, right? And he said, yes. And he's laughing harder. So I go back to my singing. But that's about when I woke up, laughing and singing and saying to myself, if Jesus accepts you, why can't you accept yourself? So I stopped doing the foolish thing about uh, doubting my own voice. But I was 93 years old, for crying out loud. You know, I'm a slow learner.
Slow learner with your career. Yeah, you're very humble, and that makes you also so special. Obviously, you are simply something very, very different, and you really remind me of Carl Jung. Really, whatever you wrote in your book is just,
Yeah.
it almost like seems like you're his sister somehow. So I'm really, yeah.
Well,
So
I've learned lessons and I want to teach them. And so that's my purpose.
you also say, and this is also very practical, we life is movement. We have to move.
Yeah.
Explain what you mean by that.
Yeah. Because if you don't move, you get stuck. You have life and living go together. And then with that process, you have to move. You breathe in, you breathe out, you move. Your body moves. If your body stops moving, you die. It's just the way it is. So it's a, a it's part of the essence of life to keep your thoughts moving, keep your life juice moving into something that's worthwhile.
You also mentioned that love heals. And to me, it's just a perfect example what also Jesus taught us, right? But how
Yeah.
were you able to heal yourself, facing, two cancer? And how do the two somehow interrelate between, on one hand, there is Christianity, Jesus, and on the other hand, it's yourself. How do the two somehow work together, if at all?
Well, we find within ourselves that part resonates with what Jesus says or whoever your guru is. We look for it. If we don't look for it, we don't find it. And if we don't find it, it dies because it has to move. And it's in my vocabulary, it's a matter of consistently and constantly looking for the light, looking for more for not just information, but more juice, more life process. And as we look for that, we find it. And we find people who are really looking for it and they don't know where to go. But if we can reach out to them at their point of despair or just in friendliness, if we reach out to them, we may be helping them in ways that no one else could.
And that's also perfectly interrelated with connection that you mentioned. That's your fourth really secret to happiness and
Yeah,
health. And
right.
how can we help people somehow connect? How do you do that? Because it feels that it's harder and harder for people somehow to connect, even though it seems like an oxymoron because it's so easy now to connect.
Well, first of all, you have to live it yourself, or it's empty sound. If you're living your life with purpose and love, and you're reaching out to people, people respond to that. They're looking for it. They are hungry for that kind of a place where they can feel that there's a person that understands. It was interesting when we started the American Holistic Medical Association. There was a time when there were 6 of us physicians sitting around a table. Now, well, there were 10 of us sitting around a table, and 6 of us were severely dyslexic. And we looked at each other and we said, maybe that's why we've started the American Holistic Medical Association, because I don't know how I taught myself how to read. And the other people didn't either, but we did. And so we're saying that's why in medicine, we are looking for ways in which healing happens and we can work with and be part of, so that other people can understand it.
And it's also so important, you mentioned how we can actually, to our thoughts, influence our DNA, especially how genes will express itself. Please elaborate on this, how important it is.
Important it is to what?
That we can actually influence the way in which our gene express themselves. And you talk about this, the book, and you are the perfect example.
Yeah. Well, if we're living our lives in a way that other people can see that we're following a pattern or we're following what we're saying, then we're allowing our lives to speak for themselves, so that the people that we're working with can understand that it can be done. You know, if we don't live it ourselves, then how are we going to teach other people that this kind of a thought process and way of living and solving issues and so on can be done this way? If we're not doing it ourselves, it's empty sound. And that's just not, it doesn't work. But if we're doing it ourselves and we're really finding the juice there, people will understand that. They really will.
And this is precisely what you are, because you also had this encounter with Gandhi, and you truly are the change that you want to see in the world. And I find this so beautiful. You live that. And that's why you are so popular, you are so outstanding, why people simply love you and love talking to you, because you have this authenticity. So give us one of the most important advice for you to start to live an authentic life right now.
Love yourself and love the world around you, and love the actual reality that your life is touching another life, like the two of us now. Who in the world, when I was a kid, could ever imagine such a thing? No way could I be talking to you, and yet here we are, and it's loving the process that life is taking us through, that we can take the next step and the next step and be joyous and engaged in life. You could turn your back on me and I could turn my back on you, and where would we be? No place. But as long as we have this connection, as we connect with other people, because it's a chain response. You understand what I'm saying because I understand what you're asking, and we are working together on this so that other people can ask the questions and get the answers.
And the best example to me, why you live your life the way you do, and how authentically and how much self-love you have, but also how much you love the world and people and everything that exists and God, is also the fact that you still have a 10-year plan.
Yeah. Well, my 10-year plan is that there'll be villages for living medicine. In other words, places in the earth where the people that live on those, now we call them blue zones, where there are older people that are living in the blue zones and so on, and that's a very interesting thing. But these are places where people have gotten together in a way that they understand each other and they live in love. So it's that kind of a 10-year plan, that this is the energy that is going to be going around the earth 10 years from now.
Beautiful. What's the meaning of life?
Well, because it makes me sing. It makes me want to do it. It's what leads me. I mean, it's the pull of love that is leading me on, and that's what I'm looking for, and that's what I want to share with people.
Dr. Gladys McGarey, I'm so happy, and thank you so much for your time and for your gift to myself and to the world.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless you all.
Gladys McGarey. That's why knowledge matters. Make your life a masterpiece. Visit now programs.d-ykm.com. Meant to make you grow.